Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today it's time for my June and May highs and lows. For those of you who are new to my channel, instead of doing monthly wrap-ups, I typically will pair 2 months together and do a highs and lows video where I just talk about my favorites and my least favorites. So that's what this is. I have 4 highs for you guys today and 3 lows. So we're gonna go back and forth between them and then we'll end on a high note. I'm gonna start with my top book for the month of June, and that is In the Labyrinth of Drakes, which is a Marie Brennan book. It is the 4th book in the memoirs of Lady Trent. And I've talked about this book. I actually recently talked about it in my mid-year freakout tag, which I will link in the cards in the description if you guys are interested in my answers to those prompts. But I'll tell you a little bit about the series if you haven't heard me talk about the memoirs of Lady Trent. This is a series that I think there's 5 books in the original, so this is the 4th. And I have some things to tell you because this book, like I said, I rated it 5 stars, and I was reading this while I was filming my 5-star vlog, my read until I get a 5-star part 1, where I didn't get a 5-star. Spoilers, if you guys haven't seen that vlog. I was reading this during that time, but I didn't vlog it, and so I couldn't count it. This is the only 5-star I've had. This was the only 5-star I've had since March. And I read it while I was filming, but I didn't count it. So anyway, I'm not bitter at all. So, if you haven't heard me talk about the memoirs of Lady Trent, you follow Lady Trent in a Victorian era society where she is very much expected to stay home, be safe, don't do dangerous things, and she becomes the studier of dragons against everyone else's wishes. And each book features an adventure and a different subset of dragons that she has studied and a culture that she gets to know because of the dragons and because of the people surrounding the dragons. So yeah, this book in particular, I think one of the reasons I'm going to highlight this out of the series is because of a romantic relationship that does happen within this book. And I am not a romance reader, but I do enjoy a romantic subplot, as long as it's not like, well, subplot. I want it to be not the main part of the story, and I want it to benefit the story in some way, which I do feel like this does. I also think that this book, because we are the 4th in the series, gets to revisit some of the characters from past books that I now know enough and am attached enough to that I really am invested in what happens to them in these stories. And so I think that has this had that going for it as well. But absolutely love the series. I can't wait to finish it out with the 5th book whenever I get to it next. Next is a low, which is also a book I read in June, and that is How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying. I'm really sad by this being a low because I was really excited about this. I thought it sounded really fun, and I know a lot of you were really excited about it too. I think this book got more comments in that video about people saying like, I really want to know your thoughts. I want to know like if this is worth picking up. And I can tell you, I do not think it is. I DNF'd this book at, I don't remember what percentage, but I know I wrote it in my bullet journal, so editing me will put it up on the screen. If you haven't heard of this book, it features a main character who, think about like being stuck in like a game simulation where when you die, you come back and you repeat the process to try and get to the next level. That's kind of happening to the main character. She keeps dying and trying to defeat the Dark Lord, and she gets tired of it and decides that she doesn't want to defeat the Dark Lord anymore because she keeps dying, having to repeat it, and she can't win. And so she decides herself to become the Dark Lord because why not? It has slapstick humor, which I think I'm okay with and I enjoy if it's short. If this would have been half the length, I think I could have really enjoyed the book. Although there are still some things that I'll talk about that I wouldn't have enjoyed, but it became grating eventually. So the part of the comedy just kind of didn't work for me after a while. And then the main reason I really did not enjoy this book, and I probably would have ended up DNFing it regardless of whether or not the humor was not grating on my nerves, was the overt sexualization of the main character. it's so abrupt, the things that she mentions, and she just doesn't feel real to me, and she pushes her sexual desires and thoughts in the most random locations in the storyline. She's in the middle of trying not to die and she's thinking about sex. And I'm like, I just, why? It doesn't add to the story at all. It just makes her character unlikable. So yeah, unfortunately, this one wasn't it for me. The next high is The Book That Broke the World. And so this is the sequel to The Book That Wouldn't Burn. And I am going to go ahead and tell you what my rating for this is. This is going to be featured in my Read Until I Get a 5-Star vlog part 2. However, this will not be the ending of that vlog because I gave this a 4.75. It was really close, but there were just a couple of elements at the end of the book that took me out of it a little bit. And so that's why I didn't want to give it a 5-star, but it is still just an incredible story. And I am still I'm really grateful that I read The Book That Wouldn't Burn last year and that I was introduced to Mark Lawrence, because I haven't ever read any other Mark Lawrence books. But these books are so beautifully written and they are so immersive that they're just an escape from reality, and I've really enjoyed them. So I won't explain this book because it is a sequel, but the first book, The Book That Wouldn't Burn, follows Levira and Ivar, and I also explained this in my mid-year freakout tag, so I apologize for those of you who watched that, but we do have Ivar and Levira. Levira lives out on the dust, and Ivar lives in a library, and Ivar, his family have been stuck in a library for generations, and it's kind of like a prison, and so he's trying to escape. Levira ends up coming to the city because of circumstances that happen within her village, and she is having to deal with prejudices of being a little bit lower born and quote-unquote uneducated for the likes of people in the city, and their stories eventually come together and are interwoven in this really beautiful book about knowledge and war and love. I've really, really enjoyed the series. Next is Another Low with Local Woman Missing. I rated this a 2.75, and it is not uncommon for me to get or give thrillers specifically lower ratings. And this one didn't disappoint as far as like my running dislike of things that happen within thrillers. This book, you start with a young girl who ends up showing up, and she has been missing for 11 years. And her mother also went missing, I think the same day. It's been a minute since I've read this. I read this back in May, but I was really intrigued. I actually buddy read this with Brittany, and Brittany liked it a lot more than me. So if you want some positive thoughts, you should go and check out Brittany Loves Reading. But I was really intrigued at first because you get to see where she comes from, like where the girl escaped from, and you get to figure out, like as you go, there's this mystery trying to unravel where she came from, where her mother went, and how everything connects. But I just found that there were a lot of things that I think should have been shared with the reader that weren't. Some things that were pretty unbelievable in my opinion. And then I think that the main thing that happens with the girl at the end, what you find out about the girl at the end, was really convenient, and I don't understand why the story was written then. Like, it just... Anyway, it was not for me, but I do know a lot of people have loved it, and so it might just be a me thing, but I did not enjoy this book. Next, Another High with A Gathering of Shadows, and I don't want to get it out of its packaging because it's kind of hard to get out of this little trio, but anyway, A Gathering of Shadows, I rated 4.5 stars. I do think that I enjoyed the second book more than the first, which my counterparts that I buddy read this with, Katie and Rainey, did not have the same opinion. Sorry if you hear Andy meowing in the background. He's getting comfy in his little bed next to me, so if you hear meows, that's what's happening. Anyway, so A Gathering of Shadows, it's the second in a series, and so I'm not going to tell you much about the plot, but within the Darker Shades series, if you haven't heard of the series, because I know it's beloved and a lot of people have read it at this point in time. You follow two characters in the first book who are from different Londons. And so there are a whole bunch of different Londons. You have Red London, White London, Black London, and Grey London. And each of them have a different version of magic or a different level of magic. And the normal people who live within these Londons don't know about each other, but you do have people called Antares who can travel from world to world who have a lot of magic. And so you get to follow Kel, who is an Antari and is in the royal family. It's kind of all I'll say about that. And he travels back and forth between all the Londons to deliver messages. There is another Antari that's also in the story named Holland. And then you follow your other main character, Lila, who lives in Grey London where no magic exists. And she's a thief who gets into a lot of trouble. She's definitely a morally a gray character, but I freaking love her. So anyway, that's kind of what's generally going on. There's a lot of political stuff going on with magic and certain kingdoms not having magic at all, and then other kingdoms having magic, others having chaotic magic that you kind of get to deal with all the characters that you're following. In the second book, I'm not going to tell you who you follow because that's kind of a spoiler for the first book, but the second book you get to follow characters in kind of a separate way, which I think is what Katie and Rainey didn't enjoy, is the separation of these specific characters. And I really liked it because you get to see more of the world. You get to see a better rounded world. There is also a competition that happens in this book that I thought was really fun, and the stakes in this book definitely get risen even higher, and I really enjoyed it. I love V. Schwab's writing, and I love the characters that we're building up, we're amping up, and I really need to get to this finale. Next, the last low for this video is the Rabbitback Literature Society. And this is another DNF. And this is another 5-star prediction, guys. I know I kind of already talked about this a little bit in my 5-star prediction video, which I will also link in the description as well as in the card, so you guys can go and see that if you want to see my other 5-star predictions. But I DNF'd this at, I feel like maybe I was 100 pages out from the end, and I just couldn't do it anymore. This book is very weird, and I do think that the things that I DNF this book for were just triggers for me. And so I think that if someone went into this book knowing that information, essentially there was a couple of scenes where I believe a male main character is taking advantage of one of our female main characters, and it just really disturbed me. And it wasn't even really graphic, and some of it wasn't even on page, but it just really bothered me how the scenes were written, and yeah, I just couldn't get past it. It does follow a main character, Ella, who is a teacher, and she lives in a town where there is an author of children's novels who's very renowned. And this author has created a literature society that she has raised essentially 9 kids in the town and made them, or helped them become authors whenever they were older. And there's always supposed to be a 10th member, but no one's ever been elected to come into the society. Well, Ella gets selected to become the 10th member after 30 years of no one being inducted into this society. And so she gets to be in the society, figures out that one of the society members, there was originally 10, and something happened to the 10th member. She has to figure out what happens there. The author also goes missing in the middle of the story. So definitely some weird things happening. But yeah, it just, I hit a couple of road bumps that I couldn't get past. The last high in the last book for this video is Malice, which I am rating a 4.5 star, and I am really excited to be in another world created by John Gwynne. I don't even know how to describe this world to you. I want to own this series. I'm going to try and see if I can find the series at my local bookshop, because I think there's 4 books in the original series, and I don't know if it's continued into like a second series or not, but I know there's at least 4 books that I can get through, or that I can get to. So there are a ton of characters in this, and this is one of the reasons I do want to purchase the books now, because I did have to read this on audio. My library did not have the physical copy available, and there's just so much, so much going on. But the general premise is you're following 2, I guess, main-ish characters out of the pool of hundreds, where one of them is a boy who's getting raised in a village where boys become men and get trained for war when they're around 15, I think. And he is starting to get to the point where he's being trained and he's getting ready to do this ritual to become a man. And there's something weird that happens to him that makes you believe that there's definitely more in his future than just being a knight for this village. He has some interactions with some animals as well that is kind of cool. I love the animal companion aspect of this book. And then you also follow a second character who is the prince of a king. And in this kingdom, there are a whole bunch of like little kings, and then like the emperor, like the main king of the area, and he is the son of the main king, I guess. And he creates a war band. There are some things that are happening within the world that definitely show signs of trouble in the future. And so the kingdom is kind of amping itself up for war, and you get to follow these 2 characters get involved in sources that are larger than them, is what I'll say. I really love this. The character development in these books is just astounding, and how much I loved a lot of the side characters, even though there are a ton of them, is just absolutely fantastic. And so I can't wait to continue on with the Faithful and the Fallen series. I just have to find it, or I have to find the physical copies before I want to continue. So those are my highs and lows for the months of May and June. What were your favorite books that you read these 2 months? Were there any that just absolutely blew you away? Were there any that really frustrated you and made you mad? I would love to talk with you guys about those things in the comments down below. If you don't want to comment anything and you just want to leave me an emoji, leave me a hammer for, if there's a hammer emoji, I think that there is for Faithful and the Fallen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.